What on earth could we have chosen to talk about as our first main talking point from the Brazilian Grand Prix weekend? Maybe Max Verstappen and Esteban Ocon, the moment that decided the race, in the end in the favour of Lewis Hamilton. Verstappen in the lead, ends up battling with a lap down Ocon, who attacks him into turn 1 and 2. They collide and Verstappen has to settle for second. I've got F1 Racing editor Ben Anderson and Autosport magazine editor Kevin Turner here to discuss the incident and the fallout with me. Ben, my reaction is, what was Ocon doing? But what's fascinating about you two, other than the fact you've both got blue check shirts on today, is that you kind of feel a different way. So why don't you start and explain that actually maybe Ocon isn't entirely the bad guy in your eyes?
Yeah, I think he is ultimately the bad guy, but in a situation where you're leading the race, you've got things pretty much under control. Lewis Hamilton isn't on your gearbox. Ocon's coming past you. I think the pictures, we haven't seen the incident clearly, but pictures certainly on the Autosport gallery show Verstappen covering the inside line as he and Ocon approach turn 1. So Verstappen knows Ocon's there. He must know the Force India is not in contention for victory. So why is he defending that line, first off? And once Ocon has attacked, why does he feel the need to contest the second corner? He has so much to lose, as Hamilton, I think, pointed out afterwards. He just needs to leave it alone. If he thinks ahead, he lets Ocon go. If he's quick enough to then come back at Ocon, the blue flags will help him out and he'll sail off to victory. But as it was, he has played a part, although he's not totally at fault, at throwing away a race victory.
I think a crucial part of it for me is that there was an assumption initially when they hit that Verstappen had gone past Ocon and Ocon was somehow trying to fight him back and come back past him, which you think, well, that's bizarre. But actually it wasn't that straightforward. Ocon had the fresher tyres, he had the pace, and he was getting on with his own race. So he thought, well, I need to get past this guy.
Which he's allowed to do as well.
Which he's allowed to do. And Verstappen knew that because he could have seen it was there. He'd already pulled 2 or 3 seconds on Lewis Hamilton, so he could have...
While going slowly as well.
He could have got out of it on the start-finish straight, let Ocon pass, not had to contest turns 1 and 2. And the other thing is, into turn 1, Ocon's made it pretty clear that he wants to come past. So for Verstappen to turn into turn 2 and assume that no car is going to be there, I think is naive. Yes, Ocon is being overly robust with the guy. He obviously doesn't like it very much, but I still think Verstappen, as Lewis Hamilton said, he's got more to lose.
Now, the FIA were quite clear afterwards. Charlie Whiting gave a good debrief on the situation and said, yes, a back marker is allowed to overtake the race leader and to unlap himself, but the reason Ocon got the penalty he got in the race was because of the way he tried to fight the race leader. Now, if Verstappen made it clear that he wanted to defend turn 1, however crazy that may have been in your eyes, once he set his stall out, is Ocon in the wrong to continue to fight the race leader? I mean, we had another DRS zone just 2 corners away. He could have just driven past him there, couldn't he?
I suppose so. I mean, with hindsight, I suppose it's easy to say that. I mean, Ocon saw his chance, didn't he? He checked with the team the rules. He checked with the team that the gap was coming down and by how much. I think, as Otmar Zaf now said, we're in a fight in the midfield, okay, not for points. So maybe this is a bit churlish, but Ocon is running his own race. He wants to lose the minimum amount of time possible in whatever battle he's having. He sees a chance to go past a Red Bull that's not going at full speed, albeit the race leader, and just goes for it. There's no guarantee that if he comes out of turns 1 and 2 behind Verstappen, that Verstappen doesn't wake up and allows him past on the next straight. Maybe he gets stuck behind him for a few crucial laps, not able to make the most of his fresh tyres. So from Ocon's point of view, he's just taking his chance. And given that he's not really in a points battle, he has got so little to lose compared to Max, who has everything to lose and did.
Yeah, I think there's 2 different things there, isn't it? I think that basically they're both being too belligerent. I think it's right that you put the onus on the back marker to be really careful when they're around the race leader. So Ocon is definitely at fault and probably should have waited. But going back to this, but once someone has shown that they're not heeding to that, the race leader, if they want to win the race, would go, perhaps this isn't really worth it. You don't want to be morally correct, but in the barrier. You want to be letting the guy past and winning the race, and that's the sort of crash I just can't imagine Lewis Hamilton having. I think he would probably, just knowing when to go, I'm bailing out of this. I suspect a lot of it's to do with the history between the two. And it goes back to karting, Formula 3. Ocon's probably thinking, this guy's getting chances to win. I haven't even got a drive for next year. I'm going to make a point. And Verstappen going, no, stuff that. I'm going to sort you out anyway. But he's the one that's lost the race. Ocon doesn't care. He wasn't even going to score points.
Yeah, the psychology of the whole thing is.
Well, it's a really valid point, isn't it? That their rivalry really exploded in Formula 3 when they were both fighting for the championship. That Ocon won, of course. Ben, do you think that maybe played a role in the way Ocon raced Verstappen? Say it had been, let's take the Mercedes connection out of it, so it can't be Hamilton or Bottas. But if Ocon catches Vettel in a Ferrari at that point, does he race him as hard as a backmarker as he did Verstappen, who's his old nemesis?
Yeah, it's very difficult to say, but these kind of histories and personal psychological dynamics definitely play a role.
Yeah.
If there's a guy here who gave you no quarter when you raced at the junior levels, you had some on-track scuffles with, and this guy has gone on to win races, be fated as the next world champion, the world is falling at his feet, while you are out of a drive next season despite actually hitting your employer's targets, that's going to get your back up. And if you see the chance to go round the outside of that same driver at a corner where he made a name for himself going round the outside of other drivers earlier in his career, you're going to take it, aren't you? The impact of that on him, on you, the message it sends is a lot stronger than a driver you have no personal history with.
I think there's also an element of sort of live by the sword, die by the sword. Like Verstappen has probably upset everyone on the grid at some point. You know, he's always really marginal, sometimes over the top, moves around him. Okay, he's not done it so much recently, but he's got a history with quite a few people on the grid. So when they've got oh, should I make their life easier? Oh, no, it's Max, stuff that. And whereas someone like Lewis, for example, he hasn't really had that. He tends to play it fair. Most people give him the sort of respect, and I think there's a little bit of payback there. I'm not saying consciously Ocon's gone, right, I'm going to have you off, but he's gone, I'm not going to make your life easy. And Verstappen's gone, he's not identified that soon enough, and it's not worked for either of them.
No, it was a genuine attempt to overtake Max. It wasn't. It didn't look like an incident where Ocon's, I'm just going to take you off, so I'm leaving my car there. He was trying to overtake him, and it went wrong. And he wasn't also doing it. There was a conspiracy theory floating around that it was to help Mercedes, his employer. But of course, Hamilton finishing first or second, it would have made no difference to the outcome of the Constructors' Championship. So Ocon is doing that for himself. He just wants to get on his race, maybe make a point, and it's just happened to go wrong because Max doesn't yield to anyone, regardless of the circumstances.
Well, they've both made a point, but Max has lost 7. That's the difference, isn't it? Whereas Ocon hasn't lost anything because he had nothing to lose going into that, that braking zone.
Let's move away from the on-track action, where the FIA took swift and decisive action in punishing Ocon, and I completely agree with that. I think it is his fault. But then off-track, Verstappen, before the podium, rushes into the FIA weighing garage where all the rest of the drivers are being weighed and confronts Ocon, starts pushing him in the chest. Ocon has a little push back at one point, kind of probably in self-defence, but does step back, kind of falls off the scales almost. And there's one point where I definitely see him do a kind of gesture, as in like, anyone going to come and help me, please? And then obviously it all gets calmed down. Verstappen walks off again, or stomps off. Max, in the end, gets 2 days of public service from the FIA for that. A penalty we have seen before, as I'm sure we'll come to. What did you make of what was effectively handbags after the race? Or was it more serious, and should it be taken more seriously? What do you think, Kev?
I think it's probably been. I think the response has been about right. I think you can't let drivers get away with that. Obviously, they're setting an example. In fact, I think if I actually say, they're expected to be role models for all drivers at all levels of the sport. So
that's the thing that bothers me the most. Is Ben and I have been in karting paddocks when we were much younger. Ben's done a lot of club racing as well. You've been in a lot of racing paddocks in your time. I don't like the idea of junior racers or less experienced racers seeing that you can go up to someone and shove them in the chest afterwards, even if it doesn't amount to a proper fight or physicality in the end, but then a kind of unseen punishment. Because I think when Sebastian Vettel got this public service thing for what he did in Baku, where he hit Hamilton behind a safety car, I don't think we hear about it when he does the work. So to the young kids or the guys, there's going to be there is more racing to come in the karting ranks between now and the end of the year. There'll be guys next weekend who, if they get a bit fired up by what somebody's done, could it now think that they have a right almost to go up to them and start shoving them? Is that a big concern here?
It is a danger, I think, that these guys have to remember that they are broadcast to millions around the world, and even though the emotions are understandable, the adrenaline's coursing, in the heat of the moment they might say or do things they regret, you just have to take a step back, and that is something that Verstappen
Ocon definitely did.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, he had no choice. But it's something that Verstappen really hasn't learned yet. It's something that sometimes comes with maturity, but maybe it's part also of his character. He's quite a fiery person. And not only does it send a bad message out to young drivers, I mean, maybe we need to have these drivers paraded around in orange jumpsuits, pictures on the FIA site of them sweeping up roads or giving talks, because I think without seeing the punishment, you get a sense that, oh, he's just been given a reprimand effectively, and there's no consequence to doing that, which is bad. But also, from Verstappen's point of view, it sends out a poor message to his rivals, because if you're Lewis Hamilton watching from afar, you're looking at this guy going into the weighbridge, kicking off, shoving a back marker around. That says he's going to lose it when we're in the pressure of a title fight or a more intense battle between us. Just in the same way as when Vettel drove into him under the safety car, Hamilton reflected on that and saw that as potential weakness to exploit in the future. So regardless of the FIA angle and the public role model angle, there's also that keeping your composure in front of your rivals, which is very important.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. I was going to say, for Lewis, that could just be a very similar thing in his mind of, okay, that can see how to get under his skin now as well. You know, give him strength as and when he gets the chance to be fighting Verstappen for a championship rather than individual races. I think it's probably worth putting in perspective. It's not like he did chase Ocon into the Force India motorhome and, you know, beat him up or anything like that, or stick a crash helmet through a car or something. We have seen worse, but I agree that it should be there should be something publicly obvious as a punishment afterwards. I think that's the message you send out is important.
Do you think that maybe the FIA, and this could be a compliment rather than a criticism, has perhaps taken into account that the adrenaline's still pumping and everybody's still red hot from the race? Have they maybe given an element of consideration to that it was just a heat of the moment flashpoint rather than a real serious issue?
It looks like it, doesn't it? I think they even mentioned that in their statement. They also talk about both Ocon and Verstappen being very cooperative and saying all the right things. And
there was apparently a handshake unseen by the cameras in the paddock afterwards.
Yeah, so I think the FIA has played it about right. Actually, they gave Ocon the penalty and set this. They've got this. Set this thing we were talking about back markers. You know, your responsibility not to take out the leader if you're going past, which is fair enough. But they've also responded very quickly and decisively with Verstappen's post-race nonsense. Got both drivers together. So yeah, I think the FIA has probably got it about right, really.